Hi, welcome to my channel Her EXV. In this video today, I want to share about how I conquered my ego to experience enlightenment. Here I'm using the words I, my, ego. Here I is ego, my is ego, and ego is ego. So the entire thing is ego. Without this ego, we just can't do any action, be it physical, be it mental. Physical action like raising a finger. Without ego, I just can't do that. And mental action like thinking, believing, I just can't do without my ego. Again, what is that telling you about this ego is ego. So everything is ego when we are here because ego is in charge of our body and mind. This ego is like a program which makes this body and mind do an action. So now we have to gain knowledge of ego. So first thing, how I could conquer my ego is gaining knowledge about ego. What is this ego? Why is this ego here? What is its purpose here? As I said before, one of its functions is to operate this body and mind to do an action. If no ego, no action, I will be like just stillness. I can say that too. Here again, I'm using I. But still, as an ego, I am saying here, it would be like that complete, that whole consciousness, that stillness, that silence. There is nothing, but at the same time, there is everything. And as we have ego here, that whole consciousness can express as an individual consciousness for a purpose here. So this is also knowledge about ego, why we have ego, what is this ego, and what are its functions, what are its capabilities, what it can do, what is its nature. So some of the knowledge I would like to share here is ego is like a self-learning program, is like a self-conditioning program, self-knowing program. How I could say how I conquered my ego? Because ego has its knowing, self-knowing. If you say any hi to any chat assistant and you ask it, who are you? They will tell you who are they. That means they are programmed that way. That means they have knowledge about themselves. Like that, ego has a self-knowing capability too. So with all these capabilities, functionalities, we will arrive to a conclusion that we are ego operating with this body and mind. But time, a point of time will come in our life because of divine intervention, where now we get some questions or thoughts like, why are we here? Why were we born here? Why this ego? What is the purpose of this ego? So the purpose of this ego is to align with our true self in its actions so that our true self can express here in this human form. How I got this information? This information, this knowledge, I got it from conditioning. Like the conditioning is the another capability of the ego. So after gaining knowledge, we learned that we can do self-conditioning with the help of this ego. That means ego is conditioning itself using the information. So the second one is conditioning. This ego is always being conditioned. You know how? When we are born here, we will get information from our true self to cry for milk. And like that, we will constantly we will be constantly doing self-conditioning and self-learning and self-knowing with this ego. This ego is doing all those things with the help of the information or knowledge. And that information knowledge will come from our parents after we were born here. From parents, from neighbors, from family, extended family, friends, and so on. And after getting all that information, from that information, ego will develop a sense of self from that information. Like, I am this, I am that, I like this, I like that, and so on. Now it has arrived to a point where it now has a sense of self, and with the divine intervention, it will we as ego, we will start to ask about ourselves. Why this ego? Why are we here? What is our purpose here? What actions we are supposed to do here? I've already gained knowledge that that I am supposed to do something, some actions aligning with my true self for a purpose. But what they are? What are the actions that I am supposed to do? And information and knowledge will be given by our true self for this too, so that we can do self-learning and then self-conditioning and then self-knowing. So we are doing that continuously. Then now again, we develop a sense of self. Now this sense of self and the sense of self we had before are different. We are we are in an initial state before our spiritual awakening journey, like when our spiritual awakening starts. And when it starts to happen, we will be slowly changing a lot by learning the information, conditioning, and self-knowing. And this conditioning is the only thing which can change this sense of self, this ego sense of self, and make that ego sense of self match with our true self. Only with the condition, because ego has developed this sense of self, the sense of self which we had when our spiritual awakening journey started, is from the trauma and conditioning only. So in the same way, with the conditioning only, we can develop a sense of self which is matching with our true self. There is no other way. There are different paths to do this, different activities to do this, but we are actually doing this only, conditioning our ego to make it sense itself, which is matched with our true self. For this, we need to remove the false conditioning which we got before from our parents, society, friends, etc. And we need to remove our errors, and we need to remove our traumas, heal our traumas, which are becoming like an obstacle for this true self alignment. And after doing all this kind of things, that means conditioning our sense of self. This is like self-conditioning ego with it only by itself to arrive to a sense of self where it matches with our true self. So then the first one is gaining knowledge about ego. Why ego? What is this ego? What is its function? What are its capabilities, functionalities, and so on. And the second one is conditioning. Conditioning our ego by removing the past conditioning, false conditioning. When we are growing up also, when we were growing up with parents or friends, our true self will be like in a distance, like it will be there, but our ego is connected to the trauma and conditioning. And from this trauma and conditioning, some parts will be equivalent to our true self. Like everything is false. It's not like that. Some parts are aligning with our true self too. So we don't drop those parts here. So the parts which we need to remove, the false condition which we need to remove, the errors which we need to remove, and the traumas which we need to heal for our higher purpose or for our complete self-realization, we are going to heal them. And what are the traumas we have to identify. Like we will forget so many things while we are growing up. So we need to identify some traumas just for a higher purpose, not like we are acting from that trauma, or we don't need to heal also particular trauma if it is going to be useful for our higher purpose. Even though we are not hearing them, we are identifying it. We are knowing that it is there. It happened to me. This is like memory. So after doing all these things, we will arrive at a point where our sense of self is matching with our true self. Now it is like a mold is there, and if we pour chocolate into that, we will get chocolate in that shape. So that shape is what our ego sense of self should be. Like how our individual consciousness wants to express itself through this form, this body, this mind, for a purpose. So we need to condition our ego, like using self-conditioning process, to arrive at that type of that shape, that mold, so that our individual consciousness can enter into that sense of self, and it can be like that and do the actions, and we are going to do the actions like that, like with the help of the individual consciousness and for a purpose. So this process is also can be termed as complete self-realization. That means the mold which this chocolate wants to be, realizing that mold, that shape, is like equivalent to complete self-realization. Now this chocolate can happily enter into that and become like that. Now our ego sense of self is exactly matching our true self, and our true self can express through this body and mind for its higher purpose and the way it wants to be here. This process is also termed as inner merge. So our true self, or Atma, our soul, it starts to raise like an energy from our root chakra, and it goes all through our chakras and up, and from our top chakra it will be like going to meet this ego sense of self, because the mole is already prepared there. It has already arrived at that sense of self, which is exactly matching with the true self. Now ego will get into contact with our true self permanently. This is this is termed as permanent alignment with our true self. Now after this, our true self, along with this mole, with this ego sense of self, it will become one with that whole consciousness. Ego can understand all this too. It gets a capability at this stage. It is not like an ego in the beginning stage. It is so advanced now. It has a capability to see all this, to observe all this. And this ego can know that true self can become, this individual consciousness can become part of that one consciousness. And then after that, that individual consciousness, our true self, will come back here into this body and this mind. Everything, all these things, ego can know because it is supposed to know for a purpose. When it knew all these things, now here I'm sharing with you, because my ego has this knowing. If I don't have this knowing, how can I share about this? It's not just me. There are so many spiritually awakening people, so many enlightened people have already written books, articles, made videos, all forms of communication they try to do what they have experienced with this ego mind. So this ego conditioning, where it can arrive at a sense of self such that it matches with our true self, is like a diamond is used to cut a diamond. However, we are not using diamonds these days for cutting diamonds, as I said before. So conditioning is the thing which can condition this ego so that we can operate with our individual consciousness in doing the actions both physically and mentally. And we are going to do that permanently. Like we will be in permanent alignment with our true self. So after enlightenment, whatever the action we do, be it mental action, physical action, it will come from our true self. There won't be any connection with our trauma and conditioning, because we have completely cut off contact with the trauma and conditioning, and we are completely connected to our true self when inner merge happened. This is why we say this as inner merge. Inner merge. Merge is happening inside of us with this ego and with this individual consciousness and its purpose, like information. Now ego is in is in proper alignment with our true self. Like it is like surrendered. It is doing the actions that our individual consciousness wants to do. Now ego and true self are not any different to the outer world. Only when I bring myself into inside, then only this ego and true ego sense of self and true self is different. It's like when we open up a mic or a cell phone, we will see so many parts inside of that. So when we close that phone or microphone and see that from the outside, it's a phone, it's a microphone, it's a one thing only. But when I open it, I will see different parts. So like that, even though this ego is different and our individual consciousness is different due to this separation, it is actually one for an enlightened being. So I feel it like it one. But only when I want to separate myself, like ego and true self, then only it will be separated. Say, if I want to say I, my true self, who is my here? Ego. True self, individual consciousness. If there is no my here, if there is no I here, if there is no ego here, then it is just oneness. That's whole consciousness. To enjoy this separate world here, we need this ego so that we can do actions with this body, with this mind. And after completing our purpose here, the ego will be like dissolved or dismantled, or it will be shut down, and ego will know that too. That's why so many enlightened beings, they share when they are going to complete this life, and they are going to become one with the consciousness. Their individual, their true self, going to become one with that oneness, because their ego has got that capability to know all of that information, and they are given that information, that capability, so that they can share with other people, and they can also know that they have so many capabilities like that. So ego is a very powerful program, and it's not a bad thing. It's a very essential thing to be here, and also for enlightenment. Enlightenment is not leaving this body and leaving this mind and going away. It is conditioning this body, conditioning this mind in such a way that our ego sense of self is matching with our true self. For that, we need to do a lot of activities. In that process, we will stop identifying with our body, we will stop identifying with our mind. Then only we can condition this ego sense of self matching with our true self. So that's how I conquered my ego to experience enlightenment. One is gaining knowledge about ego. Number two is as I gain knowledge about ego, it has a capability of self-conditioning. So with the help of that, when I condition my ego sense of self matching with my true self, this ego surrendered or dropped or dissolved completely, such that now the individual consciousness can become one with that whole consciousness, that oneness. Until then, our ego will try to play, it will try to, what we say, excuses. It will make excuses, so many excuses to avoid that sense of self which is matching with our true self. So many excuses, it makes so much of misalignment it will be doing, and we have to do a lot of inner work for that. And after all of that, only our ego will dissolve. At that particular sense of self, that conditioning only, our ego will be like surrendered, dissolved, or it arrives at that complete sense of our self, which we usually term it as complete self-realization. And after our complete self-realization, our true self will guide us from there, preparing our body and mind for enlightenment. It will start to raise all through our chakras and that inner merge, and then after that, becoming one with the consciousness, and it comes back. if it still has any purpose here to do after enlightenment, and it comes back and it will start to operate with this body and mind. This all these things I'm telling you from this ego only, because individual consciousness can express itself through this body and mind, and this body and mind, these are in charge of ego. For me, I'm separating for now this ego and true self, but actually ego and true self got like one, just like a phone, just like microphone. So I hope this video helps you in some way in conquering your ego, also for your complete self-realization and enlightenment. If this video helped you in any way, please do hit the like button, and if you want to share anything, please comment below. And I think I've shared what I wanted to share, so thanks for watching. Namaste.